Hello and welcome to the channel of Hashalea. Once again, I trust that God is blessing you. And today is the 5th of September 2024. So, what do I mean by you take too much on yourselves? Well, to answer that, we need to turn to the scriptures. The scriptures don't seem to be as important these days in many churches, but they are vitally important for me, and I trust also for you. So, Numbers chapter 16, the complete Jewish study Bible. Now, Korah, the son of Yitzhar, the son of Kath, the son of Levi, along with Dathan, and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Pelet, descendants of Reuben, took men and rebelled against Moses. Siding with them were 250 men of Israel, leaders of the community, key members of the council, men of reputation, heavy hitters. They assembled themselves against Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You take too much on yourselves. After all, the entire community is holy, every one of them, and Adonai is among them. So why do you lift yourselves up above Adonai's assembly?" So the accusation from Korah, Abiram, and Dathan. Now, Korah was a Levite, and we're told that Dathan and Abiram are Reubenites. They come from the tribe of Reuben. But they have 250 heavy hitters, 250 men of Israel, leaders of the community, key members of the council, the men of reputation. And they accuse Moses and Aaron of lifting themselves up. In other words, taking on too much for themselves, rising up above the community. You notice how there is some truth in the accusations when it says, after all, the entire community is holy, every one of them, and Adonai is among them. All true. So why do you lift yourselves up above Adonai's assembly? False. Mixing the false with truth. Clever tactic of Satan, and it never changes. But look at Moses' reaction. Verse 4. When Moses heard this, he fell on his face. Then he said to Korah and his whole group, "In the morning Adonai will show who are his and who is the holy person he will allow to approach him. Yes, he will bring whomever he chooses near to himself." Now, I've recently been looking at a prophetic word that I wrote back in, or I was given back in December 2022. This time, most of my visions were in December 21, but this is something I wrote, and I'm looking to bring it tomorrow, and it fits in with this. God will show who are his and who is the holy person he will allow to approach him. But I digress, like I often do. Verse 6. Do this, take censers, Korah and all your group. Put fire in them and put incense in them before Adonai tomorrow. The one whom Adonai chooses will be the one who is holy. It is you, you sons of Levi, who are taking too much on yourselves. Then Moses said to Korah, "Listen here, you sons of Levi. Is it for you a mere trifle that the God of Israel has separated you from the community of Israel to bring you close to himself so that you can do the work in the tabernacle of Adonai and stand before the community serving them? He has brought you close, and all your brothers, the sons of Levi, with you. Now you want the office of Kohen too, high priest. You want to take the office of high priest. That's why you and your group have gathered together against Adonai. After all, what is Aaron that you complain against him?" They're not complaining against Aaron or Moses. They are complaining against God. Now, look what Moses says here. He says, "Is it for you a mere trifle that the God of Israel has separated you from the community. Now, he's specifically speaking to Korah here. The sons of Levi have a calling on them, but I'm just going to elaborate on that. He separated you from the community of Israel to bring you close to himself so that you can do the work in the tabernacle of Adonai and stand before the community serving them. Everybody that is called of God has a calling on them. Everybody that belongs to God has a calling. And it is God who gives the calling. And Moses clearly tells Korah, this is what God called you to do. He says, is it a mere trifle? In other words, do you think so little of the calling that God has given you that you want to take somebody else's calling? You want to lift yourselves up. This is what they accused Moses and Aaron of doing back in verse 3. So why do you lift yourself up above Adonai's assembly? Moses and Aaron had not lifted themselves up. In fact, look how Moses responded in verse 4. When Moses heard this, he fell on his face. He didn't lift himself up. He was a humble man. He fell on his face before God. But Korah, Abiram, and Dathan, they've all got callings, specific callings. They're all called by God. God's given them a calling. But they're not happy. But they are now supported by 250 of the top men in Israel. So they've got some big support behind them. They've gathered a bit of a rebellion here. They want much more. They're not happy with the calling that God has given them. Now, I'm reminded of a person that I won't give their name, but a person many years ago, they are called to pray. They're an intercessor, and that is their role. That's the calling, the strong calling on their life. But one day they decided they wanted to be in the worship team. They want to be up on the platform singing and dancing. In other words, they weren't happy with the call that they'd been given by God. They wanted something different or something more. And God visited that individual and spoke Matthew 12:30 to them. He that is not for me is against me. You want to jump out your calling? You're not for me. You're against me. Stay in your lane. You take too much on for yourself. You're trying to take far too much on. Korah, Abiram, and Dathan had been called by God. It was an honour. Look what Moses says. The God of Israel has separated you from the community of Israel to bring you close to himself so that you can do the work in the tabernacle of Adonai and stand before the community serving them. He has brought you close and all your brothers, the sons of Levi, with you. Now you want the office of priest too? You want to be the high priest? You're getting above your station. You're not called to be high priest. You've got your calling. My friend was shocked when God visited them. See, this is where your fruit's going to come from. This is where your fruit is going to come from. Be obedient to the calling that God has put on your life. Now, if you don't know your calling, get in your face, get like Moses, fall on your face, and cry out to God. He'll show you what your calling is. And then stick to your calling. Don't get out of your lane and jump into something else. I've seen this far too many times. People that might be called to be an evangelist, and then suddenly they set themselves up as a teacher or a prophet or whatever. And it is disastrous. It's disastrous. And listen, when this happens in churches, it might not just be disastrous to the individual, and it will be disastrous for them. But in this story, read number 16 yourself. But God calls all of Israel out, and Moses says to them, right, to Korah, Abiram, and Dathan, and the 250 leaders that were with them. This is what he says. Let me find it. Each of you take his fire pan and put incense in it, every one of you. Bring before Adonai his fire pan, 250 fire pans, you two and Aaron, each one his fire pan. So they're all coming out with their fire pans. Each man took his fire pan, put fire in it, laid incense on it, and stood at the entrance to the tent of meeting with Moses and Aaron. Korah assembled all the group who were against him at the entrance to the tent of meeting. Then the glory of Adonai appeared to the whole assembly. God gets so angry. Now they're all standing there. God gets so angry. He actually says to Moses and Aaron, he says, separate yourself from everybody. Separate yourself from this assembly. I'm going to destroy them right now. I'm destroying the whole lot. Again, look at the reaction of Moses and Aaron. They fell on their faces and said, "O God, God of the spirits of all humankind, if one person sins, are you going to be angry with the entire assembly?" They interceded for these people that had rebelled against them. But God continues and he says, separate yourself from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And basically, what happens is the earth opens up and it swallows Korah, Dathan, and Abiram and all their families and all their possessions. Swallowed up, I believe. It seems to be describing an earthquake. But at the very end, it says fire came out from heaven and killed the 250 leaders, those that had rebelled. It caused massive, massive destruction in the community of Israel. It was mayhem. And this is what can happen in churches. It's very likely it won't just affect you. It will affect the body. And it will affect the body in a very unhealthy way. Stick to your calling. Don't try and be somebody that you're not. In many ways, I feel this is following up from what I spoke about yesterday. It's like a bit of a warning. But it's also an encouragement. It encourages in the sense that God has got his eyes on us. He's given us all a calling. And he's simply saying, be obedient to what I've called you to do. And that is where your fruit is going to come from. There is no fruit in jumping into another calling that you set yourself up for. It's not of God, and it will bring nothing but bad fruit, not good fruit. So friends, be blessed. The Word of God is the Word of God. That's the message for today. So until next time, God bless you.